house that ate its own, the final return. The rain had turned Elmhurst Road into a river of black glass by the time my headlights cut through the darkness. 30 years since I'd last set foot on this property, since I'd whispered the words that began the house's long, slow unravelling. The wrought iron gate hung crooked, its once proud blackwood crest now a skeletal tangle of rust. I didn't need to push it open. The hinges gave way with a sigh as my car approached, as if the house had been waiting. I killed the engine. The silence was worse than the storm. Through the overgrown hedges, 1247 Elmhurst Road loomed, a carcass of its former self. The tower had collapsed inward, taking half the roof with it. The wraparound porch sagged like broken ribs. And yet, something glinted in the remaining windows. Not light, not reflection. The glass itself seemed to pulse, slow and rhythmic, like the eyelids of something pretending to sleep. My phone buzzed. A final text from the documentary team I'd been working with. "Daniel, whatever you're doing, don't go in alone. We've analysed the thermal scans. There's movement in there that doesn't match the wind." Too late. The front door was gone. Not broken, not boarded, gone, leaving a jagged mouth of splintered wood. The air that spilled out wasn't musty or damp, but warm, alive. It smelled of freshly turned earth and something metallic beneath. Blood or iron, I couldn't tell. My flashlight beam trembled as I stepped inside. The foyer was unrecognisable. The grand staircase had dissolved into a slope of rotten timber. But the walls were wrong. The peeling wallpaper had split open in places, revealing not plaster, but grain. Dark, knotted wood that shouldn't have been there. As I watched, a tendril of it slivered behind the paper like a vein contracting. A sound from above. Not a creak, a licking noise, wet and deliberate. "Thomas?" My voice didn't echo. The house swallowed it whole. I knew where I needed to go. The basement. The heart. The place where Theodore had first fused the stolen trees into something monstrous. The door to the cellar was sealed shut, fused into its frame by a tumorous growth of hardened sap and warped lumber. I pressed my palm against it, and the wood yielded, sucking my hand into the wrist. Warmth flooded my fingers. Images exploded behind my eyes. Thomas, screaming as the walls folded around him. Eleonora's fingers scrabbling at the inside of a sealed wall. My father, standing in the forest, his body half unravelled into root and bark. I wrenched free, stumbling back. The door was gone. Only a gaping hole remained, stairs descending into blackness. From below, a voice that wasn't a voice. The basement was no longer a room. It was a throat. The walls had melted into a labyrinth of fused timber, the ceiling sagging into arches like a ribcage, and at the centre, where the oldest beams had once been, Thomas, or what was left of him. His torso emerged from the wall like a half-digested fossil. His arms and legs dissolved into the wood. His face was preserved perfectly, eyes milky with cataracts, lips peeled back in a grin too wide for human jaws. "You were wrong, Danny," he rasped. The words didn't come from his mouth, but from the walls themselves. The house didn't want freedom, it wanted more. Behind him, the wood pulsed. Shapes moved beneath the surface, faces pressing against the grain like prisoners behind glass. My father's hollow eyes, Eleonora's screaming mouth, dozens more I didn't recognise. The ritual had failed, the last bargain. Thomas's neck creaked as he tilted his head. You thought you could starve it, but a house this old learns to hunt. A wet crunching sound from above. I looked up. The ceiling was drooping, strands of sap stretching toward me like cobwebs. The house wasn't decaying. It had been digesting. You shouldn't have come back, Thomas whispered. The floor lurched. My legs sank into the boards up to my knees. The wood was hungry, not for my flesh, but for my memory, my fear, the parts of me that still believed in its power. I reached into my coat. The documentary team hadn't just sent warnings, they'd sent proof. Thermal images showing heat signatures in rooms that shouldn't exist, blueprints from the county archives revealing a sub-basement never added to any plans, and a footnote in Theodore's original ledger, smudged but legible. The first trees came from the grove where the locals left their dead. They told me the wood was alive. They were right. Thomas's grin faltered as I pulled out the glass bottle, filled not with salt or sage, but with black soil from the forest where my father vanished. You're right, I said, uncorking it. I shouldn't have come back. I smashed the bottle at the base of the wall. The grove remembers. The reaction was instant. The wood shrieked. Thomas's face contorted as the grain beneath him darkened, spreading like ink in water. The trapped faces writhed, not in pain, but recognition. The soil was waking them up. The floor released me as the house convulsed. Planks snapped like bones, walls split open, vomiting decades of swallowed things, rusted tools, animal bones, a child's shoe, and deeper, under the foundation, a sound like 1,000 roots tearing free. Thomas screamed, a real scream, human and raw, as the wood spat him onto the ground. His body was withered, his limbs atrophied, but free. He gasped one word, "Run." We barely made it to the porch before the house came apart, not in a collapse, in an unfolding. The tower groaned, then bloomed, its planks unravelling into branches, its shingles shedding like bark. The walls split along their seams, not into rubble, but into trees. Twisted and ancient, their trunks still bearing the scars of Theodore's axes. The house wasn't dying, it was remembering. At the edge of the property, Thomas collapsed, his fingers digging into the earth. "It's still here," he whispered, "in the roots, in the soil." I watched as the last of the structure dissolved into the forest. The documentary team would find nothing but overgrown ruins and a stand of strange knotted trees. But I knew. The house that ate its own had finally given back. And somewhere in the shadows between those roots, my father was waiting. The end.